agenda, but he insisted. So, Steve, if you wouldn't mind.
Thanks, Jed.
Unica, would you stand up for me, please? Unica's here last week. I'm announcing all of our big nut sales folks. She's excited because she knows she's going to be recognized. And what do? I leave her out. So I wanted to personally congratulate Unica. She had over $5,000 of nut sales this past year. On top of her studying and everything else she was doing with everything else in her life. So Unica, thank you, and I truly apologize for missing last week. I've also had the pleasure of being asked to today to help present the Rotarian of the Year Award for our club. Before I give you some background on this year's winner, if you're a past Rotarian of the Year winner in this club, would you please stand at this point to be recognized if you're a past Rotarian of the Year inside this club? You just heard about a tremendously talented member of our club in Paul Matthews. And our club is blessed to have talent everywhere. So as you look at all the talented members we have, you realize being chosen as a Rotarian of the Year for our club is truly an outstanding achievement. This year's recipient has held numerous committee chair positions, board positions, and is a past president of our club. Our recipient actively participates in numerous club projects, including our Adopt a Highway program, our blood drive, and Meals on Wheels. Our recipient helps coordinate key projects like our pancake breakfast, club service days, and helps our club secure many of our quality speakers. In addition, our recipient gets out media releases and club Facebook information as often as possible. Our recipient has recruited 7 members and was a driving force in putting together our Women in Rotary group. Our recipient has topped all of this off this year with some additional accomplishments by leading our club efforts to have a record year for foundation donations and receiving the prestigious Rotary District Club Builder Award. Would you please help me in congratulating my wife, Diane Junis, as our Spring Valley Rotarian Leader.
Rotarian of the Year next week. I am completely surprised and humbled and honored. I have no remarks prepared. It is very seldom that I am at a loss for words. I really am. You completely surprised me. I enjoy being a member of this club, and I enjoy the friendship and the fellowship and the work that we do. And I just want to thank you for this acknowledgement and for completely surprising me. It's possible. Thank you.
At our board meeting, I think I fell down on Is It the Truth? Because Diane thinks that she knows everything about this club, and she always has to know everything. And she said, "Okay, Jed, when are you announcing Rotarian of the Year?" And I said, "Well, we usually do next week at the end of the year party." But Diane and Steve are going to be taking a little trip at that time, so I asked Steve to help us out a little bit. So we actually have a full agenda, but I've cleared the decks for our next speaker, and I want to ask our program director, George Crow, to come up and give an introduction.
Yes, our speaker, Steve Spurrier Jr., he just wanted to know, was he here to get an award too? No, he didn't really ask that. He was born in Palo Alto, California. Did you know that? He was a Californian. While his dad was playing for the San Francisco 49ers, played football and got his bachelor's degree at Duke, and later got his master's at the University of Florida. He has been on the coaching staffs for 2 national championship teams. The University of Oklahoma University of Florida in 1996, and the University of Oklahoma in 2000. He's been a Gamecock for 10 years. What he is now is the co-offensive coordinator. He has been the wide receiver coach. You may have heard some of these names. Guys he coached, they don't seem to hang around real long. Sidney Rice, Kenny McKinley, Alshon Jeffrey, Bruce Ellington, Ace Sanders. He's the recruiting coordinator. And by the way, I heard a discussion with Greg Popovich, whose team, whose San Antonio Spurs just won their 5th NBA championship. And he was asked the secret of being a good coach. And you know what he said? Getting the right players. And Steve Spurrier is now the recruiting coordinator for the University of South Carolina. I mean, think about it. You can recruit Doug Bridges or Marcus Lattimore. I mean, or Fred Sykes or Jadeveon Clowney. They say behind every great man is an even greater woman. He truly is married to a superwoman. His wife, Melissa, not only has a master's in nursing, but she's got a doctorate, and I can't even say the word, in nursing practitionership or something like that. All I know is it's a doctor's degree. But she goes to the hospital 3 times to go through labor and delivery. So 3 visits to the hospital, she comes home with 6 children. How many of y'all done that? So they have triplets, Luke, Gavin, and Emma, that are 13 years old. Their son Nolan is 10, and Palmer and Hayden, the twins, are 8 years old. Will you join me in welcoming to our podium Coach Steve Spurrier, Jr.
Appreciate the kind words. Good to be here for the Spring Valley Rotary Club. A lot of interesting things came up there. Yeah, he did say if you stay here long enough, there's a couple more awards coming out, so you might get them. That'd be good. But Pastor Crow approached me a couple months ago, and he said, "What are you doing kind of in the middle of June?" I said, "Well, we have a few camps, a few things going on." He said, "Can you come out and speak at our Rotary Club June 19th?" I said, "Well, let me look for." I said, "Yeah, I think I can do that. I'll be available that day." I said, "Why is it that you'd like me to come speak?" He said, "You've got those 2 qualities we're looking for in a speaker that day. You're cheap and available." I'm your guy. I'll be there. What time do I need to be there? So he sent me the itinerary and said, "Let's go." But I'm blessed. I've been in South Carolina now. Going on my 10th year. Been here 9 years. Been coming to church here probably 6 years. And my grandfather was a Presbyterian minister. Went to Columbia Bible College back in whatever 1930s I think it was. Had a church in Hamer, South Carolina, out near Dillon. So got a lot of neat history here. But everywhere you go in South Carolina, people always ask you, "How do you like South Carolina? How do you like it here? How do you like it here?" And it took me a while to get used to that question. And finally, you just realize how much pride people have in the state. People are from South Carolina. Their families are from South Carolina. Their spouses are from South Carolina. And this is a pretty good state. But how do you like it? How do you like South Carolina? So finally, some guy pulled me aside and said, let me give you a little advice on this. He said, "If you can win more games than you lose and beat Clemson, you're really going to like it here." They said, "If you lose more than you win and Clemson beats you, this isn't the state for you." And 9 years in, I certainly recognize this is a great state to be in. 9 years as a coach is a lifetime. This is the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my life. Born in California, my dad played there. I claimed North Carolina as home because I went to high school and college there. So I spent 7 years there. So to be here for 9 years is a pleasure. It's an honor and a privilege. And to be involved with our football program and to see the things that have happened in the last few years, it's been a blessing and it's been an honor. It really has. But again, can't say enough about my wife who couldn't be here today. Taking one of the kids somewhere, but have 6 children. That's a bunch of them. And people always ask me, "How do you do that?" And I certainly say they have a good mother. If they didn't have a good mother, they'd be in trouble. The football reference for that is I've outkicked my coverage. I've married a good one. And if you haven't married a good one, you're certainly in trouble. So to be here and be a part of this, and our family, we come to the Reach service and have all our kids here and the kids in the nursery. This has been really a great church for our family. But a couple years ago, I'm with my wife and another couple of ours, and I never quite thought about it, but the guy we're with was a dentist. And my wife asked him, she said, now as a dentist, do you kind of look at people and look at their teeth and kind of wonder about them? And he said, absolutely. He said, that's all I do. He said, I look right at them, I can tell them what tooth's here, if they need braces, if they had braces, if they brush their teeth, and it kind of, you start to think about every little thing you got. But it took me back a little bit, and then I started to think, I think most of us do that. Whatever your profession is, whatever you do, you kind of judge people on what your background is and what your knowledge is. So about a month ago, I'm in here in the church, and the reading service, they turn the lights off, they play music, and it's really a great service. But then they kind of turn the lights on, and then Pastor Crow comes up on the screen. And if you look at him careful enough, he's a big, tall, long arms, got big fingers. I said, that guy would be a great wide receiver. He'd have to. I'm serious. Look at him, big, tall guy. I don't know how fleet of foot he was back in his day, but he's a big, long target. I thought he'd be a great receiver. This one right there. Yeah, one or the other. But another thing I think he'd be good at, I think he'd be a good coach. And coaching's not just about knowledge of a subject. And I come a lot of people that know a lot of football, and I'm sure Pastor Crow comes around a lot of people that know the Bible well. But to be a coach, you have to be a good teacher. You've got to be able to know your message and convey it to people. Kind of a common thread in football is it's not what you know as a coach, it's what your players know. And, there's some truth to that, but Mike Krzyzewski wrote a book a couple years ago, and I was reading it, and his point was, it's not what you know, it's what your players do that makes a difference. And as a chaplain, as a head pastor, it's not what you know that's important, it's what your congregation does that you're held accountable for. So it's not what I know as a coach, it's not what my players know as players, it's how they perform that you're measured every day. How they perform as players, which is something that we all strive to do. As a coach, you're always on a fine line between sports and religion, between your faith, your beliefs, and how much you need to press that upon your players, and how important it is. And it's, everyone from different backgrounds have different beliefs, different understandings as they go. But as time goes on, personally, you realize how blessed you are. The older you get in life, the more kids grow, the more issues that happen around the world, the little things that you take for granted, you start to realize how blessed you are. And every chance I can to get around my players, I emphasize count your blessings. You guys got it made. You got to stay out of trouble. There's a lot of things you got to make sure you do right in life. But count your blessings. We're blessed. We're blessed to be here. We're blessed to have the opportunities we have. We're blessed to have our health. We're blessed that we have the family that loves us. To count your blessings with every bit of that stuff, every chance you get. And I've found that successful players and successful teams have something greater than themselves they play for. And, sports constantly emphasizes the individual. Anytime you're watching the media, the individual gets all the attention. At the end of the day, the teams that are successful, players that are successful, can come together and serve a greater purpose than themselves. Whether it be the team, their family, their spirit, the things that they believe in that are greater than themselves are what is important for winning teams, for successful people. And that's something certainly I've been fortunate to be a part of. And I found that there are a lot of things much greater than me that I'm fortunate to be a part of, and hopefully I can kind of spread that to my team a little bit. But I am fortunate, very blessed. Again, grandfather being a Presbyterian minister. I remember in college, I took a New Testament class, which I thought was pretty good. And I had to write a 15-page paper on one verse in Mark. And you got to choose the verse. And that didn't help me. I think I had a verse on miracles, and it was one little verse. And I'm doing as much research as I can. And I come up with about 8 or 9 good pages, which I thought was pretty good. So then the last 2 or 3 pages, I remember a joke that my grandfather told me, and I wrote that was the end of my paper. But he told the story about a man who's in his house, and he's a Christian, he's a believer, and there's a great flood coming. So he's home alone in his house, and he's sitting in his house, and as the flood comes and starts to raise a couple, 3-4 feet up his doorstep, a boat comes to get him. Guy says, get on the boat, it's raining, it's storm, it's only going to get worse, you got to get in the boat, we got to get out of here. He said, no, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, God will save me, I'm going to be fine, don't worry about me. So he said, okay. So he went to the next house. About 4 hours later, flood had risen a few more feet. Another boat comes by to get him. He's on the second floor of his house. The storm's coming. He said, sir, jump in the boat. We got to get out of here. It's going to get worse. He said, no, don't worry about me. I'm a believer. I will be saved. I'm going to be fine. Don't worry about me. He said, okay. So he left. So a few hours later, he's on top of his roof, and a helicopter comes by and drops a ladder. He says, sir, jump on. You got to go. The storm's going to get worse. He said, no, don't worry about me. I'm a believer. I'm going to be okay. So about 3 hours later, he drowns. Water comes up, takes him, and he passes away. So he goes to heaven, and he sees God, and he speaks to him. He said, listen, I'm a believer. I've been a good Christian all my life. I've always thought you would save me. What happened? He said, sir, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. I thought that might be good for you. So he didn't make it that day. But again, happy to be here. Said go ahead and open it up for questions a little bit. Anything that y'all might want to ask about. I can talk forever about all kinds of things going on in the world. So fire away. Yes, sir.
Oklahoma 55. My question, I know you were Bob Stoops'
Yes, sir.
assistant there. Boone's Pickens at Oklahoma State has built a palatial sport. Is there any limits or anything that they can do for the sports with the stadium and all the
They
things?
can do about whatever they want. And seriously, I have a problem right now with athletics because there's too much money. There's too much money, and you can't give it to the players, you can't give them any, you can't talk about it. But outside of that, there's so much money. Every day there's more money. More money going into the program, more money from sponsors, more facilities being built. They talk about how much money these bowl games make. Now they're going to a college football playoff. There's going to be twice as much money in that. The incentive to cheat is higher than it's ever been. I mean, you can cheat, get caught, get a $20 million contract, and be fired. There is no Boone Pickens is, what every university is looking for. And, you would like it. I think the university says there's a piece of that has to stay toward university and toward academics. But he made it very clear, my $300 million is going directly to athletics and most of it going into football. And that's perfectly legal. That is perfectly legal for them to build and do whatever they want with all that money. And again, as coaches and as university athletic directors, our staff, we look for those people. We're looking for people that can contribute money that goes to all that, facilities, scholarships, coaching salaries. And again, I always thought there should be a limit on money paid. There should be a limit on ticket prices. And if we're going to keep this as an amateur sport, we ought to try to find a way to do that. But that's not the American way.
It's not a level field, is it?
No, it's not. It's not at all. And people always ask me about football and recruiting. They say, how do you like recruiting? And I said, honestly, I don't mind it because in South Carolina, we have an advantage. I mean, I look at all the schools that have losing records, have bad coaches, have bad facilities, have a bad academic department. I mean, basically, we say they're lying. They're just telling people whatever they can to try to sell them to get them to come to their school. We have a lot to sell. We've got a great school, great program, SEC. Our past players have done well. Our graduation rates have been good. I mean, our recruiting is good. We have something good to sell. We have something to sell that's better than what these other guys have to sell, which definitely makes it a little bit easier.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Oklahoma, proud to meet you. I spent a few years there and listening to my Texas guys talk over here. We had our Oklahoma Texas games were good games. They really were. That was a fun place to be. But yeah, starting out in coaching, I finished up at Duke. I was a graduate assistant with my father at Florida from '94, '95, and '96. And after 3 years as a graduate assistant in Florida, we had 3 conference championships and a national championship. And somebody asked me, they said, how do you like coaching? I said, this is pretty good. We win every year, we win the national championship. I go to Oklahoma, we were there, we had the lead in every game we played our first year, finished 8-5. And in the second year, we were 13-0. 2 national championships, both against Florida State. Had 2 national championship rings before the age of 30. I said, this is as good as it gets. Everybody ought to be coaching. So yeah, very, very fortunate to have had the experiences I've had in coaching, without a doubt. Anything else? Yes, sir.
With the improvements to the stadium that y'all have done in recruiting, has that helped? Obviously, that's helped tremendously within the state to recruit players. Are you looking to go further with that, or is that something that you're just staying with and hoping to recruit top-notch?
Absolutely.
Steve, can you repeat the question?
He asked about stadium development. Are we done with facility improvements, or will we continue to keep doing that? How does it affect recruiting? And it never stops. It never stops. And when you're not building something, you're talking about building something. There was a big article that they talked about Texas, and they said Mac Brown got to the point where they didn't keep building, they just stopped. And now they're 10 years behind everyone. So you're constantly pressing new facilities. I could talk for too long about this. One of the things we do though, we'll sit around and we'll watch what Alabama does. Because Alabama has more money than anybody. And they're willing to spend every bit of it in football, all day long. And Nick Saban says, we're going to spend it. If you've got it, I want it, then we're going to spend it today. So we have to keep up with what they spend money on. I was at a meeting with a bunch of coaches and athletic department members about a month ago, and they started asking about how much money do we spend in recruiting and football for different things. And I said, we just bought 2 of these big mannequins, and we put them in Under Armour gear, and we stand outside of our locker room, and they're $5,000 a mannequin, and I mean, they're big. And I said, Ole Miss has 20 of them, and we have 2. And one of our kind of academic women that worked in the department, she said, now, does that really make a difference that Ole Miss has 20 of them, and we only have 2? I said, I'm afraid it does. I'm ashamed to say that, but in recruiting, when we recruit these young men, any school that, they'll visit 10, 15 schools, and all of them are good schools. All of them are good programs. All of them have an opportunity for a good degree to play football at the highest level. They'll see a lot of great football. But one of the first 2 or 3 visits they take that makes the first impression on them, it can't get any better than this. And that it's amazing what a difference that makes. So we have 2 or 3 people that talk about new designs in our weight room. We're building a new indoor facility right next to our practice fields right now. It'll be an indoor facility, a 120-yard indoor facility. They'll have weight room, meeting rooms, training room. We'll build all that there. But you're constantly moving. And when you're not building, you're talking about what you're going to build 3 years down the road. Constantly. Can't slow down. Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about this year's team. How you feel about it and so forth. What are we going to do? How do you feel about Texas A&M coming in here? And are we going to win the SEC championship?
Yes, ma'am. Good question. Okay, question here. Texas A&M, I tell you what, they lost 3 great players. And Johnny football, people always ask me how will he be as a pro, and I don't know how he will be or how he won't be. But everything he did in college, if he starts backpedaling and running that way in the NFL, he won't last very long. But if you watch some of his college highlights, he's one of the greatest players I've ever watched. He's just an amazing playmaker. So the loss of him will certainly help us. That'll be a fun game for us. That opening Thursday night game, that opening SEC Network game will be an exciting game for us, and we'll be ready for those guys. We have the longest home winning streak in the nation at 18 games right now, and that's kind of fun to talk about. You talk about the Alabamas and the Oregons and the Ohio States and all these teams that are the greatest teams in the world. We own the longest home winning streak. And when people come to our stadium and they come see games that we play there, it's an impressive environment to be in. It really is. We lost some good players. We lost some good defensive players. Obviously Clowney. We talked about that. We only had 4 seniors last year, and then we had 4 underclassmen that we lost. But we count Jadeveon Clowney as about 4 or 5 seniors, so we lose a bunch of him. Just his presence alone. And I think he will do fine in the NFL. People always ask about this or that, and I can talk about that a while too. But yeah, I think he'll be fine in the NFL, and I think he did very well for us. But we'll have to replace him. We lose 2 corners of defense. We'll have to replace those guys. On offense, we lose Connor Shaw, but I think Dylan Thompson will be an excellent replacement for him. Our offensive line and running backs will really be solid. It's the 3rd year in a row I've lost an underclassman and wide receiver. So actually, wide receiver will be the weakness of our offense next year. But I think we're going to be pretty good. So we'll have a chance. We're catching Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee, at the right time, we hope. And the last 3 years we've beaten the team that's played in the SEC championship. Beat Missouri last year, beat Georgia the 2 years prior to that. So we're just kind of 1 game away. And it's amazing how close it is. We're 1 game away from playing the national championship, potentially 2 of the last 3 years. So, and it's a game of inches. We're probably 1 game away from, being 5th in the conference too. So it's a tough conference. It's a tough game. But we've done well. We've recruited well. We've got good players, and we expect to have a pretty good season this year. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
kind of aspirations do you have to be a head coach? And then talk about recruiting. I know you can't talk about players.
Well, I can talk about players unless you're a comedian here. Yeah, no, that's fine. Personally, I tell you what, coaching has become you got to be careful what you ask for. I hope to be a head coach one day. I hope to be an offensive coordinator maybe one day. But every year you have a good year and you have a good job in coaching that you kind of want to hold on to that. I mean, I've had some chances to leave for jobs that aren't better than the job I have now, which is tough to do. But I hope to get the opportunity to be a head coach. I'd like to do that, and when that time is, who knows? So, but I have a good job now. Somebody asked me, they said, "You want to replace your father?" I said, "No, wait a minute." I said, "The last thing I need to do is be talking about who's going to replace my dad, and it being me." I've always believed that if you do a good job at what your job is, you'll be fine. So make it clear what your job description is now, and do the best you can at that. Recruiting's going well. Last year at this time, again, we had 4 seniors. So last year at this time, we said we need to sign, maybe we expected some guys to leave early. We may have 7 or 8 scholarships we sign. This year, we'll have a full class. So this year, I think we have 16 commitments right now, and we're hoping to get to 25 or so. And versus last year, it's very, very different on how we sit around and what we look at on our board and how many we're going to take in each position. And recruiting is right now. Recruiting is in the spring and in the summer. Right now, we had a meeting this morning. We're talking about all the juniors that are on our campus tomorrow and Saturday. And we're expecting about 7 guys in, and that's the time you can recruit them. You can't call them right now. You can't see them off campus. You can't. The times you can recruit them is when they're on your campus. And recruiting, I'm interested to see what they do with this, because official visits take place in December and January. And 10 years ago, everybody took 3 or 4 official visits, and you had 2 or 3 commitments going into December. I mean, now we have, 20 commitments going into August. And so you're recruiting right now. Right now, we're doing our best to get guys on our campus where we can spend time with them and recruit them. And again, we have that luxury. We have the benefit of getting guys on our campus and showing them who we are and what we have to offer, which is going to be better in most places you go. And we know that. And we can stress that. Recruiting is going very, very well. Yes, sir.
Talking about recruiting, like Ole Miss last year, we got 6 guys and 4 to 5 stars. How does that happen?
It's called good recruiting. Yeah, I heard him ask either. They asked some head coach about it. He kind of looked at him funny, and he just, who knows? Who knows? But again, the incentive to cheat is great. It's really, really good. We recruited. They signed the top 4 players in the nation in those positions. Yeah, I don't know. How should we handle this? And Duke University ended up cutting their men's wrestling program to help provide for the women's sports necessary to meet Title IX. But that hasn't affected us. It hasn't affected a lot of programs. Most people are doing well, and the ability to maintain all the sports has done well. But there's not a lot of sports that make much money. I mean, even football. I mean, there's 120 football programs. They say about 30 football programs actually make money, and the rest of them all kind of lose money. So that's where we start talking about boon pickings, when you start having to find donors that can help, keep an athletic department alive, afloat. That's important that you have that support. Yes, sir.
Is anything happening with the equipment to mitigate injuries?
Say that again?
Is anything happening with athletes' equipment, the football equipment to prevent injuries?
Concussions specifically? A little bit, but not a lot. Not as much as I thought there might be done. I thought a couple years ago they might start inventing a helmet that was very soft on the outside, like an egg crate or something that would just avoid those collisions. And they have not. But yeah, football is a bigger, faster, stronger, more violent game than it's ever been. And people sat there and talked about Jadeveon Clowney, who's 6'6", 270 pounds, and runs 4'4". I mean, the physics of that is not very good for the person he hits in the head next year. Or last year, for that matter. But no, there's not been a lot of talk about how to reduce them. The majority of talk is how to recognize them and help treat them the best we can. And we deal with that quite often. And our numbers are not that bad. But identifying issues and treating them the best we can, we spend a lot more time on that. Yes, sir.
What's it been like for you personally to work with your dad this closely?
It's been good. And there's a lot of people that it's not very good. And I've been fortunate. I talked to somebody a while back, and outside of my mother, I think I've spent more time with my father than anyone in the last 20 years. I've coached with him on and off about 3 years, and it's gone really well. And he allows me to kind of keep him honest. I'm the one person who say, yeah, no, we can't do that. That's not right. And he'll kind of listen to me. And it's been kind of a blessing to have the opportunity not only to work with my father, but to work with him successfully. Because obviously I understand everywhere we go, I get the accusations of nepotism. And when I first got here, and you lose a game, well, why is Junior here? I mean, people call me Junior. How did he get a job? And then that's part of it. And the nature of when you're not very successful is you'll get criticized every way you can. And obviously now we got a son in here. Why is he here? So the fact that we've thought, okay, I've been successful, I've gotten to avoid some of that. But it's been good. I'm blessed to have the opportunity really to be around him and work with him.
It's a real blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you speak to people that work with their family members, the majority of them are, when it's going well, it's obviously a pretty good deal. And when it's going bad, it gets a little trickier. Yes, sir.
How do you do on the golf course against him?
Yeah, I'm gaining on him. Yeah, he had me for a lot of years. I still have the scorecard when I first beat him, and it took a while. But I'm gaining on him a little bit now. As he gets a little bit older, my length off the tee is catching it. But he grinds it out. He wants to play. He wants to win. He wants to. When you got a 2-footer left, he's going, ooh. Be careful on that one. It's a little tricky. He's as competitive as he ever could be, and it's kind of neat. The opportunities I've gotten to play golf with him, and people that play golf and know golf, and the relationship that you get the opportunity to spend with people, especially fathers playing golf, has been pretty cool. Really, really nice. Yes, ma'am.
Question. The SEC network, the advent of it on, say, not just our team, but some of the smaller leagues, some of the smaller conferences, Longhorn network, all of that. How do you see that playing out?
The problem I have right now is they're saying this opening college football, South Carolina, Texas A&M game that's going to be on the SEC network, you can't get it. Or you have to pay for it, or you have to buy it, which I kind of find hard to believe, and I'm waiting to see how they work that out. But right now, people ask me, where can I watch a game? You got to go down to the local bar, I guess. I don't know where you're going to watch it. That's an issue. But again, it's money, it's revenue. They said it's an additional $23 million they're going to give to every institution in the SEC. So we'll go ahead and we'll find a way to do that. How the SEC network was behind everyone else is unusual, because usually the SEC stands up and says, if we can make a few more $1 million, we'll be the first to do that. So how Texas got into that, and then the Big Ten, for us to finally do that. But that'll be a lot of money that comes our way, so we're certainly a big fan of it. One more question? Yes, sir.
There's a couple of names of people you think might surprise us as being good this year, and then also what's your biggest worry offensively?
A couple of players that may surprise you. I tell you what, it's hard to hide players anymore. Normally you know about them so much. Pharaoh Cooper is a guy that I like a lot, who came in last year and was our return man and just did a really good job. And I met with him at the end of the year, and he's a wonderful young man. If you get to read the article about where he's come and what he does, and just everything he represents is just a class act. But I said, I want you to know something. When you came in at the end of the game against Kentucky, and we had 2 or 3 games, you came in, I said, even that Clemson game, for you to come in there and start playing quarterback, I said, you have no idea how big a game this is, dude. And he ran that little route, and he threw that little toss right over there to Brandon Wiles, ended the game. But for him to have the ability to make that play is remarkable to me. But again, he's a guy I think's got a chance to have a special year. Looking forward to him really making some major contributions. I think Dylan Thompson's an excellent player. Mike Davis on the other running backs are all good. I think our offensive line is the best it's ever been in this school. I think we'll have 3 players potentially drafted next year at offensive line, which is unheard of. And I talk a lot about a lot of guys. Shaq Rollins, a young man, I hope has a good year on defense. Probably a true freshman is going to play to start at corner for us. So hopefully, we're speaking about one of those guys having a really good year this year, like we did Sky Morris, a linebacker. They came in for us last year. Biggest worries, don't have too many right now. You know, biggest worries, players getting in trouble. I mean, you're always on edge about issues. You know, if we can keep everybody going in the right direction. Dylan Thompson, for anyone who knows Dylan Thompson, he's the director, leader of our FCA, and one of the greatest Christians I've ever been around. One of our best team leaders, you know, religious or non-religious, one of our best. Just thumb on the pulse of our team is really, really good. He's a very vocal, very strong, very intelligent young man, so we're kind of happy to have him. All right, 158 is my cue. All right.